I hope that was a good little refresh, hey Ro. And yeah, so we're gonna just get into the second part of what we've got today. And just to give you a little roadmap of where we're going, I want to do a review for about 15 minutes of working with strong emotions. That was one of the prerequisites for this course, was like to catch that recording. So I hope that there's enough like of a common ground here of those who were able to watch that this will be worthwhile. And I can just give the high line of it for anyone who did miss it. So we'll do that 15 minutes. And then Ro and I would like to model some skills for you. And this is like our sameness and difference piece put into practice. And that'll largely be your kind of your, I don't know why I'm hesitating to say the word homework, but like your practice opportunity this week is to practice these skills in your own life. So we'll come to that like after the strong emotions part. And then I want to do kind of just a big open exploration of what are our experiences like at this point of those skills in our lives, like what are our experiences, and just kind of like feel into this group wisdom as a way of us also recognizing that we have a heart intelligence that kind of understands what it's like to be able to do these things well, for want of a better way of putting it, to actually really listen well, or to like speak congruently, and just like kind of make that more visible to all of us, because we all know what this is like, I think, you know, in different ways. Then I'll just offer a quick summary and then spend the last half an hour with questions and translating this into like real application in your life. Yeah. How does that sound? That's what we got going on. Okay, cool. Right, so for the strong emotions part, well, I'll just ask, who watched that? Joe watched it, Kimberly kind of watched it. Okay, I got a little. Okay. All right, Ro was with me, so I know he was there. Casey got it, cool. Khalid was there. All right, okay, some of us know a little bit more than others. All right, Natalia, thanks, nice. Okay, so I hope that you all will get a chance to catch that, because what I spoke about sensations and this whole spectrum of feeling, I think is really key to learning how to work with our bodies in conflict. The thing that continues to amaze me is just like true, is that for most of us, our biggest limitation is not knowing how to work with our bodies, not knowing how to work with our nervous systems, or having nervous systems that are volatile and like we're not able to regulate well, so that we can communicate from a place that's really choiceful. So I really think working with this animal of our bodies is really important. So please do watch that. And then you can come with any questions to next time too, if anything comes up for you. But given that most people didn't, Ro, will you please put up the slide, and I'll just share that. So if anyone just catches this recording, I don't know, after the event, it's like, okay, this is the page that we're on. I had two slides for this. One was spectrum of feeling, and the other one was the transmutation of emotion process. Thanks, Ro.
So which one is here? This one.
This one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like the vocabulary that we use in our book as a way of parsing out and understanding what's happening in our bodies. Sensation is that really like unmediated direct information of like skin is flushed, heart is beating faster, mind is blanking out, you know, like a bit of a frenetic energy in the arms and the legs. All of that's just sensation, just like straight up. And that's often what we want to be able to return to in just tracking like the baseline information of our bodies, like what is our body trying to tell us in a given situation. Feeling is when we take, you know, maybe a cluster, maybe just two of those sensatory inputs, and we give it a name, like anxiety or anger or frustration or confusion or grief, like heaviness, feeling of ache around the chest, like body just wants to collapse, like grief is the name I give it. That's the feeling I will associate with that. Emotion is when the mind body feedback loop is up and running. Like, I'm having thoughts about this fight, it's stimulating more sensation, the sensations are stimulating more thoughts, and there's this feedback loop, hence the infinity loop of like, it begins to have a momentum and a charge of its own. And sometimes when we get into that place, that's the place where we actually want to be quite careful, because patterning sometimes will take us out of direct relationship with reality, what's actually happening in the moment, what the other person is actually trying to tell us, for example. Mood is when that feedback loop becomes hardened into like a thing, and it's like this is a mood that pervades and it happens for a few days. Characteristic is when it becomes a personality trait. My anger is no longer within my choice range, it just happens to me all the time, for example. That's a characteristic. So Ro, maybe will you just go to the next slide real quick? I'm just doing like a super brief overview, I hope. What we talked about in the seminar was this process can guide you when you're getting stuck into some kind of strong emotion where and you might just intuit this, that the feedback loop is no longer serving you. And you actually want to come into something fresher. You actually want to liberate the energy. And liberating the energy means sometimes going more deeply into it. We specifically say that you need to have the ability to drop the story and move to the energy, the intelligence of what you're feeling more directly. Spend some time, be really spacious with this process, journal about it, let it take, a while, let it take a few days if it needs to, or maybe you just like, when it's intense, you drop into it, you're like, what's right about this? What is right about what I'm feeling? And then once you feel like you've found that, like, what is the wisdom of your emotions, then you have this opportunity to let go of the residue of that and make choices going forward about what you would like to do with that information. And hopefully, you can't guarantee anything, but hopefully by doing this and learning to listen and acknowledge really sincerely, like, to what's happening within you, you can then act from a place where that this is right for you, that you're not being clouded by your fears, that you're not sort of acting just from a reactive space, but you've actually taken the time to honor what you're feeling. And now what comes forward is, more likely to come from a heartful place versus a mind self-righteous, I'm just gonna like try and muscle through it kind of a place. So, okay. Let's take the slide down. And I think that all these slides will be part of like what shows up in the dashboard for you. I'll make sure, Khalid's nodding, thank you. So yeah, these things will be accessible. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that wants to be clarified now? That we can do that together for a few minutes. I know it's quite a lot of information.
Can you return to, in the spectrum of feelings, the mood and the characteristic again?
Yeah, so mood is like, let's say mood still has some, like, when the weather changes, you also change. So if like there's 1 week where it's been intense at work and you've been coming home stressed every night, then you just kind of like, this is a stressful week. I'm stressed out right now. Characteristic is when it's like, no matter who you're working with, they feel you as stressed all the time.
Does quality fit into that into characteristic? Is it like, is characteristic also describing the quality of the mood? Does that make sense?
I think it's about how much it stays and persists. I think quality is a word that's relevant.
Okay.
Yeah, like a personality quality or a personality trait, but it's like the characteristic is when it's like, this is becoming part of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the mood, it's like I lost a cat earlier this year. So I still get like waves of grief, but I think I trust that if I'm faithful to that process of continuing to source love in that experience, that the grief isn't actually going to become me. And I might have a different changed relationship to love and loss following that, but it's not a characteristic in the same way that I could be a a hothead or like a nervous wreck, or, just based on how I keep patterning emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure. Anyone else? Anything coming up? In the meanwhile, I'll just offer one more thing, which is we also pointed at I do this and then I do this. I don't know why I literally did that in the seminar. I was like, I can't make a seesaw this way. And then so I'm like, okay, let me try this way. We will tend to overfeel or underfeel. Like because it's so hard sometimes to be present and just like stay in that not knowing, that sometimes we will overfeel or underfeel, like wallow in it, indulge in it. Oh my gosh, I can't stop thinking about it. I have so many reasons. It hurts. Like, I know this one well. And then also we can like underfeel and avoid and numb out and be like, I just don't want to do that right now. And so I'm just never gonna, and it stays, in both situations, it's like that relationship to it isn't quite free and open. So we really want to like notice when we're overfeeling or underfeeling, and then course correct, hopefully through this process, should serve both sides in order to like go into it now really, and then let it be changed, like let it transform you so that you can move through with the wisdom or the gift. Cool. Let's hear from Chloe and then Michaela together, and then Joe, and then I'll respond with anything if needed. Sorry, yeah, Chloe, Michaela, and then Joe. Yeah, thanks.
I was actually in the seminar last
Yay.
and I'd heard like bits and pieces of this from other places, but I felt like it really came together in the way you explained it, and I really appreciate it. But then I was trying to express it to somebody else, and I felt like I got a bit caught up in the language of transmutation, which like someone else had talked to me about before, and I'd also kind of shut down because it felt really wordy. And like you talked about alchemy, and you talked about different things, and like the way I tried to explain it to the person was, to me, this actually connects to a lot of like the Abraham, like this was a person who has a lot of faith, like very religious, and like to me there's something that connects in a lot of like the Abrahamic traditions, but like it's kind of condensed. It's like it just tells you to go there instead of like going through the process. But I guess I was curious about like, is there other language that you have to talk about transmutation?
Interesting. Cool, thanks for that. I'm going to hear from the other two first, and then respond. Thank you. Michaela?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to share that I've appreciated the framework, and I really appreciate the infinity loop, especially because I think it's so easy to be in that stage potentially forever. And just that awareness, like the awareness that is just kind of the mind operating as the mind in relationship between thoughts and emotions. So I just wanted to share that, and that the symbol of that in particular was really helpful.
Nice. Thanks, Michaela. Thanks for sharing that. Was it Joe?
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm super curious, Kim, what you just said about the underfilling and overfilling. Is that
Oh, wait, you went mute just after the underfeeling and overfeeling.
sorry, computer has a ghost in it. Yeah, I'm curious if that's for each individual to know their limits. So by that I mean, some people, or I'll just talk about myself, I'm considered to be emotional, I'm considered to be sensitive, I can be quite passionate about things / reactive, depending on the situation. Whereas other people, they wouldn't maybe even notice the thing that I've not necessarily even got upset about, could be excited about, but it wouldn't even register. So I'm curious if the underfeeling or overfeeling is for each person to know their own space in it or limits.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I can speak to that. As a fellow feeler, I can speak to that. So I'll go in just reverse order. I think your question of like, are there limits, or what I hear in that is like to be to take that information of like I understand yourself to feel and be sensitive and maybe more than others. I think, yes, we have patterns and defaults, and it kind of depends on our family of origin and how others around us or caregivers might have modeled how they handled emotion. And then also just like our tender heart. Some of us are just, yeah, we feel a lot. For the purposes of this, because there's so many ways in which emotion touches our whole life and well-being, but for the purposes of this, with like conflict, relationship, I would say become curious about when it's a gift, and then become curious about where it leads you into strife. You know, so there may be moments where you're like, wow, your ability to empathize and be witness to and be with others, like with their emotional states, or the way that you work with your own emotion is so true that it's like helpful for others to see that. I would say then like lean in and celebrate and let yourself really be yourself when that's the case. But if you're having other kinds of relationships where the mismatch leads to like dissatisfaction or needing to be tended to, or needing things to be a certain way in order for you to be okay, then I would just get curious about when and why that's happening. And in those moments, yeah, like the guidance, the course correcting, the making space for yourself to feel and process and really love on yourself. And then understanding where, well, in Zen, because we're kind of like always working with duality. So I would also try and locate and strengthen the part of yourself that's really profoundly resilient. And actually, you know, there's kind of a indestructible nature, even as you might be a feeler. And I would try and pick that up in those moments and like work that muscle so that you feel like you're more balanced, and kind of have choice about like how deep you dive into the waters when you're in conflict. Yeah, cool. Michaela, you said it just right. I don't think I need to say anymore. Like the feedback loop for me has also been really helpful. It's seeing like how there's a momentum thing going on. So thank you for that. And then, so Chloe, with the transmutation, I was super interested what you said about like Abrahamic tradition and this kind of mirroring or matching, finding parallel with that. When I think about if there's any other language, I guess I would just try and go to the source of what I hope this is for, which is to liberate. Like this is when the feedback loop is no longer serving. This is when the feedback loop is holding you in a certain kind of position to the other or position to the conflict that's just no longer serving. So then this is about liberation. This is about actually freeing up that energy. So that's the language that I think I can respond to with that. Yeah. So we don't want to feel stuck in those things when we know, and I think we know when it's like, okay, it's time to move on. And then it's like, okay, have I really heard myself out? Have I really let myself feel that thing? Because sometimes it's like the thing is so big, and then our resistance to it or our addiction to it or our like, that's another thing in itself. So this is about clearing that and being like, okay, I'm going to go into it this time really sincerely. Like, let me dive in. Let me forget my stories. Let me experience this directly. And then through that, seek to liberate it and come out the other side of like, oh, that's the wisdom. That's the gift. Now I know what I want to do or not do. There's no, yeah, who knows? So, okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone. That was our review of like working with strong emotions, which is a huge topic. I think, yeah, let's just draw a little line under that for now. And Ro and I are gonna model for you the essential skills that come with this sameness and difference piece. So I mentioned before in the ground rules, sameness. Well, I mentioned before in the ground rules, listening well, that's about sameness. And listening reflectively is when I actively pick up and I mirror back the understanding or what I heard from what the other person said. And that's a way of joining with and just making space for that to be heard. And then on the other side, talking straight or talking congruently is bringing ourselves forward, bringing in difference. And in the book, we say we really seek to clarify that for ourselves so we can do it without traces of blame and judgment. And so I statements are going to work better in that regard. and being truthful and being considerate about when I feel, I believe, I know, you know, all of those things. Like, our words are incredibly powerful. So being able to slow down and really know what one thinks, feels, and believes, and then sharing that, like that's part of that skill. It's actually self-knowledge. So yeah, let's just give a few examples of that. So Ro, do you want to reflect me, or shall I reflect you?
Whatever you want.
How about I'll reflect you? Maybe I'll just ask the question. Will you just share for like, just for a minute or something, like about some, let's say, some kind of conflict or challenge you've been experiencing lately?
Yeah. Let me just pause for a minute. No, not a minute, but let me just. Yeah, I would say work-wise, you know, in the meditation center and the Zen center, but one of the biggest challenges, like we don't stop being human. Doesn't matter if you're practicing meditation, you know. So like I would say that like a challenge is just in my working relationships, in the space of practice, in the we are organizing things, how to keep embodying our humanity, you know, more and more without drama, but directly, you know, the limitations, the pains, the traumas in a context of open, vast resilience, non-differentiated resilience, to, yeah, I would say that to be a human, which is a big part of spiritual communities, like integrating emotion, integrating the relationships, integrate like everybody. There's a little bit of a tendency to attach to spiritual ideas, and then with good and bad, and what's good, what's bad, and then the bad is, you know, the emotions that are difficult. Anyway, that's yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I can make sure I'm understanding you right, and feel free to sort of correct or clarify. I heard you say that for you, when you're working right now in the meditation center, you want to really know that we're human beings, that we're humans as we do this work together. And that includes, I think you said, working with our trauma and working with our pain and working with our limitations, and that's a part of being human that you feel is important to include. Yeah, I think that's the essence of what I heard.
Yeah, I think I would add that, like, I see in spiritual context, whether it's traditional, post or postmodern, I see, because I've been in this context for a long time in different communities, I see a tendency to that it's a little difficult to do that sometimes.
To include us being human beings, like we expect different.
Kind of some kind of purified, you know, angelical, sentient being that it's able to respond skillfully to any, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So in that, I'm going to just use my own words for a second. I hear you like saying, let's be real. Like, let's be real in our humanity, that we're not, you know, above it all. And that's something that you've seen in spiritual communities at large. And so you're bringing this lesson right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Thanks,
you. So just side note for folks. So when I was reflecting, I wanted to give him space to, if I wasn't quite on it, like let him tell me where's the emphasis. That's more important, like for him to feel heard than for me to get it right or like use exactly the right words. It's okay to paraphrase, but you're really trying to share the energy of and the content of what he said. But I'm checking in with him, like, is that right? Is that, do you want to add? He just said, I'm going to add something. And again, I was like, oh, okay, so this is about this for you. And then, I can kind of finish it by just asking, like, is that right? Did I understand you correctly? Yeah. Just thinking with the, is that clear, by the way, before I move on? Like what that reflective listening is? Okay, cool. Nice. Let's go to talking straight, and then we can, there's more to come in, like our exploration, that I think will help deepen the picture. So, Ro, I'm going to ask you to just share more. You can expand on the same topic if you want. And I'm gonna bring in some difference, and I'm gonna give two versions of it. I'll do the gentle one first, and then I'll do the slightly fiercer one second. Okay. And we'll just see what happens. Notice your bodies, people, by the way, when it happens, just get sensitive to that. Okay, go ahead, Ro.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I mean, it's just like I guess the same, like talking about the same thing. I just feel excited about it. Well, try to do it different, trying to engage it openly as an inquiry, and trying to, to be with it and be equanimous with it and engage in emerging action, whatever that means, and also engage when it's not emerging action, notice it, and try to readjust as much as I can.
Can I share with you what's coming up for me when I hear you say that?
Yeah.
Cool. I think I know what you're saying, but I like get lost in the words of what you're saying. And so I don't know, like in our relationship, sometimes I want to hear you just say what you mean. So that's my asking permission. And then I'm kind of commenting on how he's saying it as my difference.
Yeah.
And so let's just time out on that, actually. And Ro, do you want to say like what that was like for you?
Yeah, no, I kind of just felt the tension, and felt like, okay, we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
And then I just started like really getting into it. Okay, so what is she talking about? Just, it came up, it did come up something very just like direct,
Like,
like what came up was like, I feel fucking confused. Can you hear it correctly? Are you hearing it right now?
Yeah, I got it.
Like I get fucking confused. That's what happens. Is that succinct enough for you, sister?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ro. Okay, nice. Do you feel that energy that got brought in as we just started like getting a little playful and a little like edgier with that difference? Okay, so let's keep with that. And now Rose, say something else about it, and I'm going to bring in maybe even a little bit more edge in the difference. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I feel confused, and I get tense and fearful about, like I get fearful that I get kind of frozen sometimes, when I'm in those conflicts in the community. Like I feel kind of get frozen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I also feel the power. I feel my power too, like coming online,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you're a lot more, I think you know what you're doing more than you say, that you give yourself credit for. I think you're really capable in conflicts.
Thank you.
That's kind of an interesting one, hey, because it's like I'm differing with you, but I'm also affirming a part of you. So I'm kind of telling you what I think, but you kind of like received it as thank you because it was kind of complimentary. So it's kind of an interesting difference. Let's just go one more round, and I'll just be like really, really objectionable.
That's true. That felt like it totally is like a difference, but because you were kind of like affirming me, I didn't feel any threatened by it, So it's interesting. It's good to notice. So you didn't do a pretty good, like, I was gonna be like, you didn't do a pretty good job with the exercise, Kim, right now. What happened?
What are you talking about? We're showing people all the different ways in which you can differ. I'm doing it just right, you know?
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our little modeling of it. You know, there's just different kind of like mild, medium, spicy ways that you can disagree with someone. Of course, when it's the real content of something that you're working with, it can feel so much higher stakes. But even practicing it in these kinds of situations, it's really good to be able to just notice what's happening and know where you're at. And once we did this exercise and the prompt was like, I don't like your shirt. I just don't like your shirt. And Ro was like, you want to say what you said?
Yeah, no, like we were in another, I think we were in another course, and I was like, I don't like your shirt. It's like the color of it. It just reminds me of like, and it was like a yellow shirt, like with like baby shit color. And everybody, and like a lot of people in the course were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But just feel, like if I can say something, feel like explore, get edgy. And if you get stuck, just take a breath and we can come back and, talk about it. Like feel like that rule that Kim said, just be for each other. And like, it was nice to listen, like when you weren't being able to connect. I don't remember who talked a little bit a while ago, like, but she said like, we were assuming about each other, so like just noticing and yeah.
We're actually not going anywhere. We're staying here. We're gonna just like do a kind of a big mind exploration of it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll just say like, on one, like we're laughing is also another way of dealing with like anxiety or nervous energy, because we're trying, like it's releasing, it's coming out. And on one level, he's talking about baby poop, but in another conversation, that could be someone telling me, I don't like the way you do things. I don't like the way you're being right now. And so if I know how to like just track what's going on, then I can, again, it's like moving towards choice, moving towards asking for time out if I need it, moving towards, okay, is this the time for me to launch my defense? Or is this the time for me to just like, okay, you think it's baby poop? Okay, So, so these are the skills that we're working with here in this like listening well and talking straight. It might just feel like super fundamental, but I think this is the bones of all of our communication. It's like how to be there for one another and then how to bring in our pieces so that our diversity is actually nourishing and enlivening for the whole. So to that end, I want to just engage us in, it's a big mind, it's like a big mind dialogue, but I'm going to do it as a big mind exploration. And I'm going to ask you to join with me. And so we're going to inhabit different sensations or feelings or states in turn. And we don't have as much time to do it as I hoped initially. So Khalid, maybe we'll just do this until 5 past. What do you think? I'm feeling it's a little compressed.
I got you.
Yeah, thanks. We'll get as far as we can, and we can always pick up more next time round, or I can post a supplementary video in the Facebook group if needed or something. So will you all participate in this process with me? Just ask for your permission first. You down for this? Cool. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to shift in your seat a little bit. Just take a slightly different position. And in your system, find what it feels like when you're listened to well. So just imagine a time where like your best friend, your godmama, someone is just like, they're there for you. They hear you, they see you. And you can unmute yourselves, or you can put a hand up if you want to speak, but I'd love to go around and just hear from 3 or 4 people, just briefly, what's that like? What does it feel like in your body? How do you know when you're being really heard? And people with your cameras off, you're also welcome to chime in. Candace, hi.
Yes, I'm able to free flow speak. I don't hold my words because I'm worried about what they're gonna think of me. I feel safe.
Yeah, beautiful. You're free to be yourself. It's safe to be you. Great. Anyone else? Irene.
Like what you have to say is valuable or valued by the other.
Yeah. Can you say that with I? Like what I have to say is valuable?
Yeah, well, it was a conversation I had recently, and it
Oh,
really
sorry. No, I just
surprised
meant,
me.
sorry to interrupt you. I just meant reframe it as I, because right now you
Oh,
are the one who's being listened to
all
well.
right. My opinions and my feelings were heard and valued, and I felt they were heard and valued.
Great. Thank you. That's great. Let's go to Myra and then Andrea. Tell us about this for you.
Yeah, it feels in my body like I am open and safe in that I can share and what's coming up can freely be expressed.
Great. Myra, on that, I love it. Can we just go like a level more into the body? So when you just like close your eyes and go into that openness, how is your body expressing that to you right now?
I don't know. I just feel my heart is open.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe like, if I could just put words in it, like just for the benefit of those listening, like maybe there's a softness and maybe there's an expandability. Being unconstrained in itself is like a thing, like there's space for your heart, it's safe. Front body is like safe to open. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like front body is soft and yeah, expanded and open. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Andrea, what about for you?
Very similar. Shoulders down and back, heart open, a feeling of real warmth and naturalness, no fear of judgment, welcoming, which feels again warm, comforting, soft, and the feeling is a smile. So it's like a glow, I guess.
Lovely. Thank you. I love it. Good. Yeah, this is all a really good survey of what's here. We're doing a bit of a whistle stop tour. So normally I'd spend a little bit more time marinating in this because this is really good stuff. But for the sake of what I would love to move us through so we can keep finding these different experiences in ourselves, I'm going to ask you to shift again. So kind of just like, okay, thank you, feeling, I know what that is. Just let that go, shift your body. And now we're just going to go straight up opposite side of the seesaw. What is it like when we're not listened to well? So be in that state where you're not heard. And what's that like? I mean, I'll start by saying like it's frustrating and I get like a tightness around my throat, and opposite of what we heard before with Myra, like I actually feel more contracted in my front body for sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say I feel really small, and I start to feel a hypervigilance, almost like a disassociating, because I feel so frustrated. It's like, you know, like an attack. Yeah, hypervigilance comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very, very small. It feels like gosh, every part of my being, you know, even my mouth, it's like at a cellular level, it just feels like I'm being made to disappear. So I am disappearing now. I am leaving this planet. And on the adverse of that, when I felt listened to, I felt like I belong. I'm safe.
Yeah, totally. It's the polar opposite, that shrinking and like kind of self-negating. So thank you, Chelsea. Let's just move through a few more and then we're going to pick up the other side where we are that actor. So if we can keep this fairly brief, I would appreciate that. Let's go Chloe and then Jessie. I think there's another one, but
the first thing that came for me, I guess I don't know if it's disembodied, but like I felt like a cartoon character, you know, when the person's like running and someone's holding them back. Like you're running in place, but something's like pulling at you. So there's like a lot going on, but there's like a barrier, I guess.
Yeah, there's like a futility to it. This is like, yeah, it's just gonna consume energy. It's like, yeah, there's actually something that's stopping you from doing what you want to do. Good, yeah. Thanks, Chloe. Good image. Jessie.
Yeah, I think for me, my experience is very similar to what Chelsea described. It's like that the other person is not taking into account my perspective or my needs, so I'm going to have to take care of myself, and that's where like the fight and the protectiveness comes in.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jessie. I like that. She's bringing in like what could be happening mentally. Like that's what's happening in the mind, right? This person is not taking me in. I need to take care of myself. And there's like a, yeah, there's a need there. And there's like a, well, okay, well, I'm going to have to act for me. So it's like going back into I self versus we space, you know? So
on some level, it's like it becomes a matter of survival.
Yeah, yeah, good. So I think we all know this one. We all know this. So let's switch it up. So find that shift again. Maybe you can just adjust your body position. And now we're going to be that person. So we kind of, like we were just doing the experiencer person, and now we're going to be the one who listens well. You know, what is it like to really take someone in on their own terms, as I was saying before? What does that feel like in our system? I'm genuinely curious. I'm open. Latanya, do you have anything? Or Michelle, I just saw you. No, it's go Latanya, then Michelle.
Yeah, I'm noticing just a sense of like connection. I'm drawn to like it feels like my chest wants to move closer.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Michelle, did you have anything? And then I'll come Michaela.
Oh, yes. It feels like a gift. It really feels like a unexpected gift. And it makes me feel validated, acknowledged, loved, and valued.
Beautiful. Thank you. I just feel it in your voice, and I could sense others do too. Thank you, Michelle. Michaela, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think slowness comes up for me. Like I notice my breathing slows down a lot. And yeah, just like that open, like deep breath. It's how I feel when I'm really listening to someone.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I mean, the energy in here shifted in the room that we're in now. Yeah. Khalid, maybe final one, and then we're gonna just shift again.
Sounds good. I think that I was noticing levels to it where I feel like the deeper I'm listening, the less I feel the need to respond, because at first there's a part of me that always wants to try to fix or solve things, or like feel like I need to have a response. And at a certain point, it was just like, this can just be, and I can be in this space while this is happening. And it doesn't need to bring forth anything other than the presence of that space to allow what wants to come through. So I kind of feeling like the release of a forward energy and more of like a present, but like not sinking, but just like a grounded space.
Yeah, yeah, like a Buddha energy kind of. Yeah,
totally.
Nice. Thank you. So this just weaving in the wider context here. This is what we want to be able to access, and this is the state training that we can do, is to find that part of ourselves that even if we have something to say, or even if there is a wrong that happened that needs to be righted, if it's possible for us to drop into listening, we could fundamentally change the conversation, whatever is happening. And it's not mutually exclusive. It's not like now if I hear out, then they win and this is over and I never get to say my piece. But this fundamental skill helps to bring back the sameness that can allow the conversation to go forward, because it's easy right now when we're here together, and we all know it's really hard sometimes when we're just feeling the intensity. So just wanted to weave in the importance of this. final one we'll do for listening, and then we're going to do talking straight and then come to questions. And I acknowledge that we're over time, but this just feels really important. So I'm going to keep going. So now shift and be that one who doesn't listen well. Okay. You could have many reasons for doing this, but fundamentally, like, I just want to hear what's happening in your body when you know that you're not listening well. I feel like energy around my back and my shoulders. And I feel a bit of a contraction here, and I'm going to label it impatience. For me right now, I'm going to label impatience. Anyone else? Jessie?
Like a sense of urgency somewhere in my chest, or something I need to say.
Good. Andrea? Then maybe Ro will come to you next.
Yeah, a sense of impatience and wanting to contribute or, yeah, cut off, like an assumption that I know what's going to be said next. Attention in my shoulders. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, nice. I like that you shared that assumption that you already know what this is. Like, you don't have to hear it. You know what this is. Yeah, super normal. Michelle saying tightness in the stomach, internal overwhelm. It's good. Ro, what about you? And then we'll move to the talking straight part, I think.
Yeah. So I noticed that I interrupt, and it's like I interrupt, and then I also feel like I notice that I'm not listening, and I feel some judgment towards myself. You know?
Yeah, okay. So there could be some self-judgment coming out, like I should be doing this better or different. And yeah, and that just adds more burden, I think. Yeah. But also we could take that as information. I'm out of alignment with my intention, for example. Yeah. Good. Okay. So all of that we've amassed from this sort of collective of like human experience, take that into the week. Start tracking what's happening for you as you're listening to others and as you're being listened to. What is the quality of that connection, of that presence? And then make refinements if you can, if it's within your wheelhouse and you want to. Let's just do the talking straight part because these are a pair. And I'm just going to do like the first person of it versus the being talked to part of it. So shift one more time. And now see if you can embody that one who is talking congruently. I'm being clear. I'm actually coming from a considered place. This is not reactivity. This is actual truth. And kind of nothing to prove, it's just true. Michelle?
I have a question. I am an introvert by nature, so I am like doing a lot of active listening, and then the type of profession I'm involved in, it beckons to be an active listener. So I was wondering, how does this impact people who do a lot of listening?
How does which part impact people?
The fact that you're always doing it.
Oh, okay. So, well, maybe I'll just ask you directly. How does it impact you? If you feel like you're always doing it, what's that like for you?
Well, for me, it's fulfilling. I just know what it's like having growing up, not being listened to, and then being an introvert, always being the one to listen. I know it's a gift. So what I do for myself is I have people and community where I get an opportunity to balance off that energy. So I'm always in the position to show up authentically to listen. But I know that there are people who, they are constantly thrown in that kind of space where they are continuously, whether they want to or not, find themselves having to listen to others. So I was just curious.
Well, I think in the context that you're speaking from, I would take your life as the example, you know, of like, it's been important for you to carve out spaces where you get to speak and space is made and others are considerate of that. So that's what I would want for others too, who are experiencing the same thing. And it might be that people need to make some shifts to ask for what they want, because sometimes we want others to be mind readers where we expect them to make space. And sometimes that assumption isn't always like, you know, put out there as a request. But if there's a request, then you're giving people the opportunity to say yes or no. And then if they're saying no, then you got a choice. Like, cool, is there others you want to be with who do honor you and say yes? And yeah, and I think there's place for here for like introverts and extroverts. Like someone once described the story of like a fire that wants to be built, and there's like lots of little twigs and there's kindling and there's like a lot of like there's little sparks and there's breath, and that's kind of like the extroverts. Like there's a lot of like, you know, activity and things that are contributing to the fire, and it's kind of fast, and then later at some point there's like a big log once the fire's going, and the big log is just like boom, and it just like it lands and people just watch that fire like you know. So I think there's all kinds of beautiful ways that we can contribute to the space. And so Michelle, I see you and I value your introvertedness. So I'm super aware of the time right now. I gotta be honest. So I think I'm gonna just pick up and shortcut through to the end a little bit here, and then I can actually like just draw a little line under this process, and we can go just more deeply into questions and conversation about all of this. How's that? Is that okay? Thanks for coming along with all of these contributions. I just love this as well because I get to hear more of your voices and just like hear more of how people frame out this experience in their own body mind. So it's great. Thank you. So I think I was saying like about talking straight and congruently in that alignment. It's like, I actually don't need so much to be proved. I know that it's enough for me to share where I'm coming from. And I think not having too much attachment to the outcomes is important unless you're making a specific kind of request. And I'll just say, like, of course, there are different kinds of conversations. There's some conversations where we just want our feelings to be acknowledged. There's some conversations, personal ones particularly, where we just want to be seen. We want our struggle to be part of the story. And we want that knowledge, that awareness to softly massage the future for the other people to take in what we say so that they can actually shape and move with us as to what. So those are more subjective kinds of experiences, right? And then there are other kinds of conversations where we're straight up negotiating and there's actually outcomes that we're seeking. And I think that this talking congruently really applies in both. And the more that we're clear about what it is we want to bring forward and why and the what for, then the more likely we are to be successful in whatever pursuit that is. And for me, what it feels like is my verticality, like my sense of alignment from my root to my crown is just like, it's bang on. Like there's no shaking this. Like this is what I represent. This comes from a real place. And I don't really need anyone else to tell me whether it's true or not. That's really nice about it. Shifting myself when I'm not talking straight and I'm like, there's something I want to say, but I'm not quite saying it. I feel hesitant. I feel maybe one down in my power. I feel a little bit of that smallness energy that came up with the not being listened to, kind of like, do I not get to? But there's a way in which like, I'm not quite letting myself also. Like I believe things about the world. And so I'm going to behave in this way because that's just how it is. So there's kind of a defeatist energy to me too, when I'm not talking straight sometimes. And I might just be trying to get to the next thing. I mean, be like, okay, fine, let's just like do it this way so that we can get to the next thing. So also that sense of impatience, if I'm trying to escape the moment, comes in just as I touch into that now. For me, it's okay, fine, like I'm just done with it, you know. It's frustration energy and more outcome focused, and I'm not really being present to like, if we slow it down and I might, if I was going to, I might script something for myself, or I might consider writing a letter. And by scripting, I mean like, hey, I'm having a hard time bringing myself forward in this conversation. Maybe we need to come back to this. Maybe I need it one more time. Something like that. So, okay, that was a super whistle stop tour. But these are the fundamental skills that I would really love for you all to practice in this week that we have next. This framework that I've set out of like sameness and difference. This is like really key to the book and to our own sensibility and our heart's intuition of what to do with our conflicts, or how to move them forward or facilitate a different kind of opening. We touched on strong emotions in the body. Kimberly, I really hope this knowledge has been like connecting in with your wanting to work with your body. I tried to keep that relevant throughout. And yeah, I'm just going to draw a line under it there. Thank you so much for all the ways in which you've been listening and participating, because this has been an awesome first class. Like, I feel really good about how we've landed into this space together and what we shared and explored. So I'd love to spend the rest of the time just talking about what you want to. And if there's a few questions, maybe we'll take a whole stack and then respond to them, so that, yeah, more of this, or we'll go one by one if it's like slow to come. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you all. Hey, Kimberly.
So I just have a question here. So I felt that I could not really answer these questions with the shifting. So my intent is to pay attention this coming week to when I'm listening and when I'm listened. But I wonder if there are things that I can think about sort of going into those conversations to help me connect to my body, so that I'm noticing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think that should be your intention. I think, you know, as you go into a conversation, I think that should be your intention. Like, I want to stay really connected with my body throughout this experience, like whatever it is, I want to stay connected and frame it that way. And also just to we did that really fast, so no worries if that was just like a little bit too fast in the transitions. There's a slide that I made which has this in the form of sentence stems. So if you're someone who likes to journal, or just sit with it, just contemplate it and take them in turn, then you'll have time to recall memories or imagine people, and then write about it. And that'll help to develop your awareness, like what that's like for you personally. Cool. Let's go to Chloe, and feel free to put questions in the chat too, that we can answer. Okay.
I'm trying to think through the talking straight, and the way I'm understanding it is like maybe as confrontation, but I don't know. Like, that's how I'm hearing. Like, that's sometimes necessary to move along a conversation, or maybe that's a fear that I have, that if I use that skill, that it would be seen that way. So I guess it's an interpretation and a fear.
Fair enough. I think that's totally legit, and would probably be the reason why many others would be hesitant, because like, I don't want to square off. I don't want this to be me versus you. So I think that my guidance would be to be really thoughtful about how you're doing it, and learn to present things in a way where, so just to paint a picture, like in mediation, sometimes where we're mediating with people, there's this like, people are facing each other, and that's like, right? And as mediators, sometimes we can do this shift where we invite people to be on the same side of the table, addressing the problem together as shared. And that is just like a really, I mean, yeah, you're gonna feel like, Michaela, that landed for you too, that changes something actually. And so maybe the way, Chloe, that, I mean, first of all, I would take that little tip that we did earlier of asking permission to bring forward a difference. And you could even create caveats. Like at that point, say, hey, I want to share a difference of perspective, but I'm nervous that this means that we'll be squaring up. You could just say that, just like reveal it, and then it doesn't have to like, you know, impose, and then you're trying to not say it, but also not do it. And you just, you know, like that could be really helpful. Be like, your position is allowed to exist. That's right. I have another consideration I really want to share too. We're going to talk next week about the 3 perspectives that I think might help develop this area a little bit more. Yeah, does that help for now? At least for the practice for this week? Cool. Thanks, guys.
So there's a question on the chat team. It says, Michaela, what kind of practice could support talking straight in a congruent way?
Great question. I think my first response is something to do with like self-awareness and self-knowing, and taking the time to like know where you are and to know what you feel. I think when you're really deeply in touch with that, and you find the truth in it, like what's right about this, then there's a way in which, well, you've validated yourself, and that's the most important thing. And then from there, there's not as much needing from others to validate us or anything like that. So I think that would be the congruence. It's not like, I'm not, if I've taken the time to journal, like, what do I care most about this? Or what's triggering me the most about this? And why do I have that fear? And what do I think is going to happen if I don't get the outcome that I want? And just like getting like really into that, you know, and just like spending the time, like, this is all worthy. Oh, wow, this relates to something I felt for a while in the past. Let me get curious about how this situation is similar and this situation is different. And just like, just like let yourself swim around in that, sleep on it, pray over it, you know, like invite. Sometimes I'm just like, I obviously have a lot of, this is really important, like that we know, where we're coming from. And sometimes where I'm confused, I'll ask for guidance. I'll pray over it. You know, I'll say, please let what wants to come forward. Please, you know, guide me, help me to shed what's extra and really come to the heart of the matter. Like that, that's part of what I do. That then I think can help the congruence. And when I feel like I'm spiritually supported, like in what's really here, then it makes a world of difference. So yeah. Do you want to say anything, Kayla, in connection with that?
Well, thank you for that offering. And you know, I agree. I agree with what you're saying in terms of taking the time to process. And I guess there's also a curiosity for me about a physical practice of being in that kind of alignment, because I think for me, I have a lot of, you know, disembodiment and you know, just physical fear when it comes to even if I've done that, even if I've taken the time, I still have a fear attached to the delivery of that truth. Yeah,
fair enough. So what I hear you saying is that like you can be really in touch with that, really aware, self-aware, and still there's something about like embodying it in the moment that's still challenging because of what's happening. I kind of have two suggestions. One is to like find a role model, find a whole troupe of role models of like pretty badass humans where when they speak, you just feel it, like it feels good. Like they are owning their first person truth, and just watch them. Just get curious, like how, where are they at? What's their energy? What's their tone of voice? When do they pause? When do you feel like they're going into overdrive, or when is it like just right? Like, and just become a student of that. And you know, maybe that coming from curiosity will help it just naturally start coming through in you. And then the other thing that I would say is like practice with friends, practice with a sister who you trust, and say, hey, like I've got to have a tough conversation. Can I just like practice it with you first? Because I want to be able to say a few things without my voice shaking, and I trust you. Let me know what works. Yeah, something like that. When I teach negotiation, I encourage people to do that a lot. Practice. Like that's really good sense. Just do some practice.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Report back if you have any wins with that. Just to share.
There's three questions in the chat, Kim. So Joe says, so say someone picks a fight out of the blue, something a family member does. What's the next step? Straight talk, ask question, reflect back.
I'd say any of those are choices. I think it might depend on whether this has ever happened before. It might depend on how the fight picking is happening. But I think, curiosity is a good move. If you're not, yeah, I mean, if it's something that I might need to take in and process, I might reflect back just to hear, did I hear you right? Is this what you're struggling with? And maybe I need to, yeah, okay, let me think about that. Let's talk about this. I can see you really care about it. And it's like, that matters to me, especially as a family member, right? But yeah, I think if it's out of the blue, and as you say, it's like not like a habitual thing, I think, yeah, meeting them on their level of like, oh, this matters. And actually maybe thank you for bringing it forward, because I don't want you to suffer this alone. Let me think about this. I care about this. Let's work together to find a better way, maybe. If you feel attacked, of course, it's different to when you feel like you can share in the co-creation. I mean, you should feel like you can share in the co-creation of what happens next, but I think trust your judgment and the curiosity piece. It's really good. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Joe. So is there Ro, is it right, like Andrea and then Natalia?
Yeah, there's a couple other questions. Andrea says, doing the movement like we did in the break, or doing deep breathing or tap. Oh, that's more of a comment,
okay.
dear. Let me go to the question. Natalia has a question for Kim. Would you say that what we covered today is applicable for some sort of intimate situation where two people who are in conflict are willing to explore all of these things that we covered? In most of the conflicts that I observed or what I was part of, people were not open to pause and listen or to explore how their bodies reacted to the conflict.
Yeah.
So do you think that this approach is more applicable to just specific situations, or will broaden this concept to all possible conflict situations that humans usually face? Thank you, Kim.
Yeah. Thanks, Ro. I think, Natalia, I would say yes. I think that this work is particularly applicable to our immediate environment and relationships. Yes. I think that especially our intimate relationships, where the experiences of being heard and truth to be held in the relationship, I think this work is like, yeah, super relevant. And I would say this applies in the workplace. I would say this applies with like the people that we need to collaborate with, you know, our kids' school. I feel like how I work with people on the phone when I'm like getting into like a, you know, just like weird stuff happening just with anyone that you're talking to. I do think that, yeah, slowing down, listening, finding an intention always matters. Like I can't think of a time when intention doesn't matter, when you're just going to go in there like freewheeling, like anything can happen. It's like, no, we can have like a highest vision of how we want things to actually go. I will just say the situation that I think is important to name where this work to me needs more, I don't think it's not relevant, but I think it needs more, is when there are serious power imbalances.
And maybe that's what I was trying to probe, if we're gonna cover more of this power, power struggles, because I think many conflict situations are arising from that. And when you said applicable to work situation, I feel that it's a fantastic approach to, to two people in some sort of relation, intimate relation, or just being relatives. But when it comes to works, Kim, I guess another question is, so if you have another person who just basically venting, sometimes people just need to, to vent on someone. And and I observing lots of people being in need to just share their feelings this way, because they don't have this communication like we do right now in a group. And so, and is this the approach that can be used? Because in my opinion, what we covered today really require two people to, if not listen, to at least cooperate with each other. And if the other person is not interested in cooperation, it doesn't, I mean, maybe I'm not right, but in my opinion, from what we covered today, doesn't matter how well you try to listen, how, how peaceful you're trying to be at this moment, and, kind of scan your body and be in a present moment. If the other person is not cooperating, it's basically, it's going to be very difficult to arrive to resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is there are going to be some situations where because there's a power imbalance or because the other person isn't going to cooperate on the same terms, you feel there's just like a big limitation in those
I
situations.
think that's most of the observations that I have about the conflicts that happening, at least, at least in my presence at work situation or everywhere else outside in the community.
So I'll just hold my hands up and say power is beyond the scope of what I designed this course for. It's a really important topic. In the book, we have a chapter on power here that I feel, so let me just take a step back and say, I'm gonna just take a risk and say this. Like, I think that most of us have more power sometimes than we give ourselves credit for. And I actually think that that's true in a large majority of work situations. I understand there are economic pressures which hold us into patterns, sometimes in a different way than if we were entirely free choosing in a great universe. And I think that when you look at the people who've changed society and remedied really tremendous injustices over time, they were able to source personal power in a profound way where they understood that fairness was on their side, that equality was on their side, and that the values that they held around love, and I'm going to just say, yeah, fairness, were on their side. And so I think if I sort of shift into where I think you're coming from and witnessing and maybe being on the receiving end of just having to take it, I would probably really want you to find some level of empowerment in yourself that you can not be just a witness to what you see happening. And maybe those people who are venting on you so much, maybe that's not what you want. Maybe there's an opportunity to kind of shift it up a little bit and draw a limit for yourself on how much you need to receive of that.
And I didn't say it was these people venting on me.
Okay.
I didn't mean that. I was just saying that this is what I see right now, at work situations, that in the community and everywhere else. And I was just wondering if this approach is applicable, but you answered my question, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natalia. It's a big important one.
Of course.
I know that there's more than I can digest here 2 minutes after our time.
No, but I really like how I really like how you answer this question. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natalia. Appreciate that too. We can keep going and continue this conversation in other channels offline. Kimberly, let's hear from you.
Cool. So I don't think I need an answer for this today, but I'm interested in, so I can see how this will work in one-on-one conversations, but I'm interested in thinking about how it might work in a group. I'm often the person in a group who does have the most power to sort of shift where we're going. And so I wonder, especially in situations where I have the patience to like pause and slow down and reflect back, but I don't want to waste everybody else's time who don't feel like that they have the space for that.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, first of all, awesome. I'm really glad that you're that person who can help to facilitate groups, and yet you're wanting to apply your skills to serve a broader whole. I think I would say the facilitator moves. One is like really getting good at reading the energy, so that when, as you say, like your suspicion of like, oh, this is going to slow down the group, it's going to lead to lethargy, maybe this is not everyone else's concern, being able to sense that in the field and either inviting that person. Okay, so then this is, so one is like sensing the field, and then two is saying, I would say, have a lot of options in your tool belt. Have thought through, okay, if this is, well, I'm just like make stuff up, but like, okay, if this relates to something that should happen in another conversation, then finding a graceful way of inviting that person to do that, and kind of also helping the group understand that that is being given its due weight. That might not be this meeting, but it's happening. So maybe that might be the move. Another move might be, hey, okay, I can see that this is challenging for everyone to listen to, but actually I feel like this is key for something else because of what you sense. Then maybe actually taking a little bit more time or checking in with the group. Would you be willing to slow down with this piece, because I know I sense there's something here, and get their permission, and or maybe like put a time limit on it. Okay, so just for the next 10 minutes, how about this person shares, and then how about we have some responses or some reflections, from others. Like, what do we all feel? Maybe another process or meeting needs to be opened just for that. Like, maybe more people care about it than you think, you know? So that's what I mean by having a lot of options in the tool belt. And yeah, how does that land for you? Does that, okay, cool, great. I'm really happy you're the one with the power. And I just feel that, like, I'm really happy you can bring this into that space and like help to guide conversations there. And feel free to message me anytime if you want to go more in depth in that. Yes. Okay, Tanya, hi. Yeah, I'm happy to hear from you because it was ages ago you put your hand.
Hi. Yeah, I just and you and I, I got the opportunity to talk to you last week, one-on-one. And so I'm sort of being repetitive in a sense, but this work lands very like personally for me. So it lands inside first, because for me, that's where a lot of the conflict resides, the unresolved conflict, the way the world looks at me, the way, and so I can internalize a lot of that. And so this invitation to really imagine what I'm like in conversation, to imagine how I've listened or not listened, to see that graphic that you showed that actually talks about like what happens when there's too much sameness, when there's too much difference, all of those things feel like tools I can internalize that don't have necessarily anything to do with the other. It's the way that I enter into a space. And I found that I, like you, pray before I do most things. I ask for guidance. I ask for my tongue to be tempered. And in that preparation, when I meet the conflict, it feels like I do have more power and choice because I have the awareness. I'm able to embody the learning, the information that I have today feels like a superpower that I can use tomorrow, because I do know what my intention is. My greatest intention is to love. And sometimes it's messy. And so that's the appreciation I think that I can take away, whether this is one-on-one or whether it's one of those days where I feel like it's me against the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's the information that I can carry inside of me that has the power to shift a scenario. And, some days I think about that personal power. Other days I forget, but maybe the practice is remembering. And this idea and invitation into choice is just one of the most beautiful invitations, I think, even in a space of conflict. So I didn't have a question. I just wanted to share with how this is really landing for me.
Thank you, Tanya. That was really beautiful. I'm just receiving it, and very appreciative for what you're saying. And I feel like that could be the beautiful final note to end us on. I have nothing to add. I think that was just really perfect. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That I completely agree with you, Kim. I think just that was Latanya, you just really so wonderfully consolidated but expressed, I think, a lot of the weaving that Kim and Ro offered today, of how to connect back to ourselves for the sake of connection with other people in the midst of conflicts. Kim, thank you so much for the intentional space that you have held and the work that you have done and that you've brought together across your lived experiences in this lifetime, to really provide such a thoughtful container in this space. And Ro, right back at you too. I'm so grateful, so humble. My mental body, my emotional body, and physical body are all stretching and expanding in real time. And so I'm excited to integrate this knowledge, and I hope folks are feeling the same way too. And the best part is that we get to come back next week to get more into this. So thank you everyone for being in the space today. We honor you. Take care. Keep growing, keep expanding, and logistically, the recording will be available in 24 hours. Please feel free to join us in the Facebook group. And yeah, take care. Take care, everyone, for the rest of your evening, y'all.